I'd like to get the landmarks.
Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin.
I'm Daniel.
This is my brother-in-law, aka Human 2.7. You hear that music behind us right now? Yeah, that's him. This guy made it.
The truth is that you're present. The truth is that you're near.
We are here to spoiler talk Independence Day Resurgence. This was a movie where like half of it was really, really fun and like carefree and just a great thing to go see. But there was this other chunk that was like, kind of missed the mark just a little bit. One of the things that I really liked, first off, like I kept saying in the trailer talk and all that stuff, I loved that they have this fictional alternate reality now, where we have taken alien technology and made it our own, which I thought that was really cool. But there were a couple other things that I didn't see coming. Like, I thought it was cool when they're flying to the moon and the debris field is still there from the mothership in 1996. So, like, that was a really cool relic from the first one. And then not just the debris field, but this whole other plot line that was amazing to me that I never thought of, that aliens survived the crashing of those ships. So they actually had an alien prison where they put these things. Then there was that whole little country in Africa where this tribe had a hand-to-hand combat war hunting these aliens for 10 years. Like there's a whole nother war going on.
Right.
There's a lot of really interesting residual effects of these aliens coming that I just didn't think of. And then one of the things we kind of meet in this movie is David Levinson's got a new love interest, which was weird and out of place and random.
Yeah.
Because he had that woman in the first movie,
His ex-wife.
Who they reconciled and made a big deal about that. And then all of a sudden, not even a mention, not even an honorable mention.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, you see them doing the whole hand-holding thing at the
it was
wedding
so dramatic.
for Heller and his wife, who, again, we'll talk about her in a minute,
Yes.
Heller's wife and Dylan. But, yeah, you see this, they make a point to focus on their hands and how David's still wearing his wedding band.
After all these years.
And now, all of a sudden, what?
Yeah.
Who? Yeah.
And it's weird because there was no love interest, and then the last 5 minutes of the movie, awkward kiss, and it's like, what?
They didn't completely shoehorn it in at the end, because when he first meets her early in the movie, we're introduced to her as she is a psychologist who's helping people recover from alien encounters. B, she is the foremost psychologist in that field, which explains why she and David crossed paths.
Yeah.
And I forgot if I was doing 1, 2, 3 or ABC. Who cares?
I don't remember either.
The third thing is that she talks about, and David talks about how they kind of bumped into each other at a few conferences, and it feels like they're being euphemistic there.
Yeah, there's definitely a history.
Yeah, and so you get the idea that they have history. You don't know why this history exists and where his ex-wife went, but you do get the feeling there's history, and so the relationship doesn't come completely out of the blue in terms of the context of this film.
That's true. But whatever happened to his other wife, out of the blue, she's just gone.
Yeah, they don't explain it.
But the interesting thing about this girl, Catherine, right?
Yes,
The
I think so.
interesting thing about her and her psychology is it deals specifically with people that have had these psychic encounters. So, you know, Dr. Oaken with the tentacle around his mouth, the alien speaking through him. President Whitmore, when the alien beamed into his mind, the visions of what they're planning to do and all that stuff. So that's what she does. She's a psychologist with people that have had that encounter.
Right. She is also a place where they introduce a nice bit of foreshadowing in the form of the circle with the little slash through the side. It looks like a sideways power button from a computer.
It does.
But it turns out that it's something else.
Yes, and it's weird because they have a psychic link to the hive mind aliens, and these aliens fear that symbol. So then the people who have had the link to the aliens fear the symbol because they're fearing whatever's going on in the aliens. So that was kind of cool the way they brought her in. Mm-hmm. So we got, on the one hand, another thing I never thought of, which was the whole residual leftover of that psychic link. President Whitmore is suffering from it. He's not himself. Dr. Oaken he's been in a coma for 20 years because of his whole thing. And so it was interesting to kind of pick that up and have a whole storyline too around that. Mm-hmm. But as you said, with the circle, that became a super important thing.
Right.
Because that's where the movie opens. We're on the moon base, it's some kind of portal opens, and this circle comes through. And so it's like, do we blow it up?
Right.
Have the bad guys return? So they blow it up because no matter how great we human beings are, we will blow up what we don't understand at the first chance we get.
And it's not like that's the first encounter you have with it. Whitmore has it on the notepads all over side tables in his room. You see it etched on the walls with the tribe in Africa. You see it literally everywhere. So it's like the entire Earth should have known that this was something important and it was coming.
Yes.
And yet they don't.
Yeah, no. And so when it gets there and they recognize it, they're like, I don't care about people's weird dreams. Blow it up. The other thing they're trying to say is in 2 decades, the world has been at peace.
Right. Right.
But apparently still ignorant.
You can't change what people are.
I guess you can't.
I mean, you could do Star Trek where somehow we became enlightened and we all unified and went out exploring space, but that's a universe unto itself.
But that to me was just an incredibly interesting plot line to have this other race all of a sudden come into the mix here, and we learn about it a little bit later on.
I like the decidedly sci-fi vibe they give us at the beginning. Humanity has leapt forward because we have appropriated alien technology. There's some really great things going on there, but there's also the subplot of all these important people are still around in some fashion, like the memorialization of Will Smith's character from the first one as a test pilot. He never stopped trying to push us forward. And he kept flying all the way up to literally his death.
Yes.
So you have these great notes where they give us a little bit from the first movie.
Yeah.
They try to tie everything back in to remind us, hey, this is 20 years later in terms of the story, but also in terms of reality. We realize it's been 20 years since we released a movie in this franchise. Let's refresh your memory on a few of these things.
You know, that was one of the things they did really cool, was to play on the nostalgia of the first movie, but at the same time, I guess this is one of the negatives to me, is how much the filmmakers, depended on you seeing the first one. You didn't get a reintroduction to President Whitmore, so you kind of had to know him from the first movie and love him based on what he did in the first movie, because you don't get a re-establishing of him. You re-meet his daughter, who is now an adult in her mid to late 20s, which is cool.
She is, yeah.
But she's a new character, so of course we got to get to know her in a different light and all that stuff. But they rely too much on that. And then Dylan Hiller, the stepson of Will Smith from the first movie, they did a better job memorializing Will Smith's character than they did when they killed off Dylan's mom in the first wave of alien attacks.
And now you're kind of jumping ahead of us.
I am jumping ahead. It's what I do. It's what I do.
That's okay. So we do have that we get a little bit of the emotional connection with Whitmore and his daughter, but we don't get so much of the emotional connection between Dylan's mom, Will Smith's love interest from the first movie, and Dylan himself. We get it in a moment of panic, but we don't really get it established. The daughter and father relationship is much more established in this movie, I think.
Yeah, I think so. So the good alien shows up, but we blow it up because that's what we do.
And we don't know it's a good alien.
Yeah, we don't know it's a good alien, but, you know. So then the bad aliens show up, and just like in the first movie, everything turns back on. The alien ships turn back on, and then Dr. Okun, I can never say his name. Dr. Okun wakes up mysteriously from this 20-year coma, and President Whitmore, who walks on a cane, suddenly is a little stronger. But they never explain this. Is something you notice they never explain.
And that is the biggest negative of this movie, is that they don't explain a blessed thing.
No.
They don't explain how Okun can just jump out of bed after 20 years in a coma and walk around.
I would think there'd be just a little bit of atrophy.
Right. Give me technobabble. I'll buy it, right?
Yes.
Say the alien quantum blah, blah, blah is something that we developed into this serum, and it makes muscles not atrophy.
Yeah.
Great.
Yo, I believe you. Awesome.
I have no idea what you just said, but okay, that explains
I'll
it.
accept it, but they didn't give us that. He
No.
just is all of a sudden, he wakes up and he's running.
Right. And, scratching his butt, which I really didn't need to see.
No, I didn't, but it was still hilarious. Now, of all the characters we connect to right away, Dr. Okun, to me, from the original movie, was the only character they decided to reestablish and really get you to love and reconnect you to. Like, it was amazing, like, the connection I had with that guy right away. And the best thing about it was, when they brought the sphere back, he was the guy, through a series of hilarious events, figured out how to get it out of the shell that it was in, and then that other dude, by accident, touching it, turns it on.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of interesting, but see, here's the other thing about this movie. I felt like it was in a hurry to get things going, which is why we didn't get a lot of things established. We didn't get a lot of things explained. It was moving too fast. And so all of a sudden, this new alien speaks English because it downloaded our language or something, and I didn't really like its voice. And so that moment where it turned on, I found a little anticlimactic.
So it's a sci-fi thing. I can buy that an alien race that's way more advanced than us is able to just, touch us, and all of a sudden it speaks our language.
Yeah.
Fine, it's an alien race. It's
That's true.
super advanced. All right, fine. I'll buy that. Maybe it just scanned the dude's brain and took out all the rules of grammar and syntax. That it's not that far-fetched in terms of things I have to believe in a sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
So of the things where I had to just throw it out the window, this is easily the least problematic for me. And I actually disagree. I don't think that Oaken was the most sympathetic or the most well-developed character. I thought when they brought David's dad, Julius Levinson, back, they actually brought him back in a very sympathetic way. They bring him back as an older man who's wishing he had grandkids, who's wishing to see his family continue, and David hasn't been doing that. And like,
I can see that, but then he was, I don't know. To me, he was the guy on the road trip trying to get to David. And there were a lot of great moments, and I'm not disagreeing that he wasn't a great character. He was a good character. In the book that he wrote, How I Saved the World,
right.
That was hysterical. All because of one statement he made in the first movie. Come on, David, get up or you'll catch cold. So he just decided to write a whole book about that.
Which makes some degree of sense, because David's running around, my dad, a genius. So, of course, no big deal there. What I think is interesting is that so many characters actually just slid into the space that had been occupied by another character in the first movie.
Yeah.
So, Dylan's mom was the one running around collecting people on the way to safety at Area 51. Now that space is occupied by Julius Levinson.
Yes.
You had you had Russell Case, who is the guy who flies right up the alien ship's bunghole, and now that spot is occupied by President Whitmore, who is doing this to save his daughter, right?
Yeah.
So you have these people that literally just step into the same spot. Case was doing it to save his kids. Whitmore's doing it to save his daughter.
Yeah.
Levinson is doing it because he has this heart for saving kids.
Yes.
The then stripper, later doctor wife who dies is this.
Yes.
She had a name and she loved dolphins, but I have no idea what her name was.
I can't remember. Jasmine.
Oh, there we go.
Yes,
there we go.
Jasmine. And what was interesting about her, though, is she was a great character in the first movie. But in this movie, she was just sort of there. And then you're like, oh, she's a doctor now? And then she dies.
Right.
And you're supposed to feel the emotional impact of it because it's when the ship that is a third the size of the Earth. I mean, the thing is huge and takes up the entire Atlantic Ocean.
Right.
And lands in the entire Atlantic Ocean.
Just straddles it.
And just billions killed. More than in the first movie when the ships came individually. I mean, this was a huge event. So she dies in that wave, and Dylan's on a plane and watches her die. And you're supposed to feel the impact of it. Now, from Dylan's point of view, that's mostly where I felt the impact, but I didn't feel the impact in a connection with her. Because even though she was really established in the first movie, they were really expecting you to draw on that and make that connection without showing you her hard work, her determination, and what brought her to where she was in this movie.
Right, and that actually is another one of the themes, right? We had theme number 1, which is they didn't explain anything.
No, they didn't.
And theme number 2 is they cheapened or they pulled away from really hitting us hard with the emotional impact of things. Whitmore's death is cheapened by the fact that the Queen Alien,
we'll get to that in a second.
Alien,
yeah.
The Queen Alien has her own shield and just stands up out of the wreckage of the ship that Whitmore just sacrificed himself to destroy. The fact that, you've got Dylan's mom who dies. You've got all these people who die. That one Chinese pilot's uncle.
Yes.
You have all these people who just randomly show up long enough for us to go, oh, we're supposed to care.
And then
they
they're
die.
dead.
And you never really get invested in them enough to feel the impact of their death, or in the case of Whitmore, where they're trying to say, okay, we're going to pull in all the stuff that you had from the first, and you love this man, and now we're going to kill him. But then they cheapen it and they pull the impact away. You don't get a chance to just yell like you did for Russell Case.
Oh, yeah, when Russell Case flies up there and blows them all up, I mean, it was this moment of, I'm so sad, victory, I'm so sad.
Right,
you
you've
know,
got this mix of emotions, and you don't even get that with Whitmore. You understand what he's doing. He's going to save his daughter.
Yeah.
and he's doing it to save the planet, but it's more about saving his daughter. And he actually says that in so many words. She says, "You don't have to save the planet. That's our job." And he says, "I'm not saving the planet. I'm saving you. You're missing the point."
Now, speaking of Whitmore, this is another place where I feel like the movie went fast, because in the last movie, we didn't really even find out until the end, get the virus in the thing to bring down their shields and then figure out how to take them out. And this all happens at the end. This movie, it was like right smack dab in the middle. The sphere goes, "Oh yeah, it's a hive mind. Evacuate your planet. Come with us to the refugee planet of all kinds of other aliens, and we'll learn how to fight them and try to preserve and blah, blah, blah." And they're like, "Oh, no, we're not going to do that. You said they're hive-minded, so there's a queen? Okay. Oh, there's a heat signature. Oh, that's what she looks like. Oh, okay. So we'll send a decoy over there, but really we're going to go over here, and we're going to take it out." And it's just, I don't know. Like, I felt like they found the solution too fast.
I don't feel like they found the solution too fast. I feel like what happened is they tried to hit the ship when it lands over the Atlantic. So you got the ship, boom, Atlantic, and they go after it with everything they got, knowing that this is problem. and they try to go for the hottest looking part of the ship, figuring that's going to be the place that we need to blow up, because, hey, wait, it worked last time, it should work the same way this time. So there's a little bit of logic, and okay, it worked this way, let's do it again. All right, fine, I follow the logic. It makes some degree of sense. But then, as soon as they activate the other alien, which again we need to talk about, that actually brings the queen out of her main ship to go after this thing, because she's terrified of it, and that inspires the decoy thing, because she decoyed them and brought them into a trap. So there's this back and forth, and actually the decoy thing brings me to a part that we talked about last night, which is that there was this really great part where you had a bunch of people running around the alien ship, and it literally made me think of the old Vietnam War movies, where you've got the American soldiers just trying to run around in Vietnam, and the Viet Cong are just killing them like crazy because the Americans just don't belong there. You've got that same kind of othering happening where the humans don't belong on this ship. And they're just getting hunted like cattle, and it's amazing, and you get like 5 minutes of it.
But what was great about it was, so this was Liam Hemsworth, Dylan, the stepson of Will Smith, Liam Hemsworth's best friend, like his wingman, and, you know, the girl.
Literally all the surviving pilots.
But these are the new characters we get introduced to, and we really get attached to these guys. Like, these are fun characters. So they go in, they're the first flight offensive, just like Will Smith in the first movie, and they see an opening in the ship, and they decide, since they got all these bombs, we're going inside, we're going to take this out from the inside. But it turns out the aliens learned from the first time that opening was a decoy, so they sucked them in there to take away their bombs. But then inside the ship has its own like environment and ecosystem. So like you said, they're running around in swamps, they're running around in water, they're running around in an ecosystem. And then you have these ground troop aliens shooting at them as they're hiding because their planes were downed and the bombs were taken. And then they had to steal the aliens' flying machines, UFOs, whatever they were. So there was this whole fascinating thing. But like, here's where you're right, they pulled the punch on that. Like, it was such a cool concept. And even though they pulled the punch on it, it was still awesome. But there could have been so much more they could have done. And they're like, you know what? They're in, they're out. Done. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where one of the weaknesses of this film is that it hits so many of the same notes of the first film. I talked a little bit about how you've got the characters where everybody just seems to slide into an existing role. You also have we're going to steal their ships and use them against them kind of theme that was in the first one. A lot of the same notes are hit, and so in some ways it feels like we're treading the same ground. It's the same complaint people have had with certain other recent sci-fi
reboots, sequels. Yes,
it's a similar complaint to that. Only in this case, I've had 20 years. I don't know that that's necessarily that big a deal. I've had 20 years to look back and say, wait a second, that's the same thing that happened there.
It's not that it hit the same formula that bugged me. I expected that. It's just, in some places it hit strong, and in other places it pulled the punches. And those places where it pulled, I was like, that's where you wanted to hit just a little harder.
I think that's where you should have committed to it. If you're really gonna, if there was any place that they should have committed, it was in those places where they pulled their punches.
Yeah.
If you want to give me the full impact of Whitmore's death, give me Whitmore's death.
Yes.
And just make me feel it. Right. Yes. Get me right in the feels with that one.
So let's talk about Whitmore's death. The aliens wanted the sphere. The sphere had a certain signature to it. The sphere said, kill me because it's going to find my signature, get my memory, and go to the refugee planet. So don't let it take me alive. They said, no, it decoyed us. We're going to decoy it. We're going to shield you in alien shield so it can't find your signature. We're going to copy your signature and send it way out in the desert, and we're going to lure the queen out there in a great big fight. And the way to take it out was to have President Whitmore, or somebody, they're looking for a volunteer, a pilot to take these alien bombs they had created.
Fusion bombs.
Fusion bombs. Fly them into the mothership and blow up the queen inside. And the stakes are supposed to be really high here because in the Atlantic, it's drilling down to the core. Because these aliens, that's what they wanted in the first movie too, was to get to the core and steal our planet's core. But then President Whitmore goes to blow up the thing, and it's a dramatic thing because the daughter didn't want that to happen. And he wanted to save his daughter. So he sends a decoy to make the daughter think something's going on over here while he takes the plane and flies away so that the daughter's like, no, you jerk! And so then he goes and he sacrifices his life. But the reason the punch was pulled, like you said, is because it didn't solve the problem.
Yeah.
The queen was alive.
And she stands up out of the wreckage.
And well, that's where we're kind of supposed to go, oh no, his sacrifice was for nothing.
Yeah.
But instead, I was looking at it like, that's kind of cheap. He just kind of blew up and now we have this other thing? Interesting.
And the queen just stands up like, what?
Because she's got her own shield. And then, that's just at this exact same time, some of this was a little too convenient and some of it was really cool. At this exact same time, Dylan, Liam Hemsworth, and all the people that stole the stuff from space, from the
Atlantic.
The Atlantic are suddenly converging on the desert too. And now they're all shooting the queen mother and all that stuff. And so like it turned into kind of a cool dogfight fighting this 50-foot tall...
Oh, I think she was bigger than that.
200-foot tall queen. I mean, she was huge.
And she's stomping through blocks of concrete, just huge amounts of concrete, stomping through, and she gets the sphere in her hand, and now all of a sudden you finally have the tension. She's holding it.
Oh, yeah.
If she gets back to the ship, we're all screwed.
And as a queen, all the little alien fighter ships, she turned them into bees buzzing around her, so even Liam Hemsworth and Dylan lost control of their ship, and it was flying around her, so it's now we have tension.
Yeah, finally we have tension. Drilling to the core didn't give me the tension. Blowing up her mothership didn't give me tension. A big dogfight against her didn't give me tension. But now she's holding the thing that looks like the head from the alien robot in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yes.
And now all of a sudden I finally have tension. I think in the end, what ends up happening is that it pulled all the punches that I wish it had stuck.
Yes.
It didn't stick the landings enough.
Yeah. Whitmore's death, it didn't stick the landing because it was immediately, this thing. Which that thing was cool, admittedly, but it didn't stick the landing of Whitmore.
Right. And ultimately, even though it sets up for a sequel, and the sequel is humanity leading an offensive against evil hive mind aliens.
Oh yeah, because the sphere is going to teach them interstellar technology so they could go to the refugee planet and
new
lead
weapons.
A rebellion.
Yeah, and new weapons that are supposed to be able to
Yes.
defeat these guys, even though spheres people couldn't do it before.
Yeah, and this is the only sphere left out of all its race, so it's okay, well, I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to play out. But in the end, I think that what ends up happening is it doesn't quite deliver the same impact, the same emotional punch as the first one. So it falls a little bit flat. The first one to me was a really, really great movie in its time. This one feels a little bit inadequate to its predecessor.
Now, look, when we're doing these reviews, it's really easy to talk about some of the negative stuff. I mean, it's always easy to talk more negative.
Of course it is.
But even watching the movie, you still get this, adventure feel. You get this fun. You get this nostalgia. There is still a lot worth seeing, and there is so much that is so fun. You just have to go in with the expectations. There's places where they're going to pull their punches. There's places where it's very cookie cutter, and places like that. You just got to go expecting that, and then you got to roll with it. And
if you don't remember the original cast, you're going to have fun because you're not going to remember them. You're not going to feel bad that they didn't get you invested in them. You're going to be more excited that they're trying to invest you in this new group of heroes. So that is probably going to be fine for a new audience coming to this with fresh eyes. And this one, admittedly, I will be buying it when it comes out on DVD.
Yeah, me too. Which is why I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars.
So for my part, I'm actually going to say 4 stars for this one, mainly because the first one, in my opinion, is a 5-star film, and it really deserved those 5 stars in its time. This one didn't live up to its predecessor, so that's where I'm going to fall on that one.
If you saw Independence Day Resurgence, how many stars would you give it? Be sure to let us know in the comments. While you're down there taking a look at the comments and stuff, click the links to check out this guy's Facebook page and his music. He's got great music, great lyrics, all kinds of awesome stuff. So make sure to check it out. Send him a hello, like his page, give him a follow. Give us a follow here too, subscribe. All right, I'm Durbin.
I'm Daniel.
Thank you so much for checking out Durbania.
Truth is that you're present. The truth is that you're near. Offering a love.